Sure. Before we get started, Death Metal Guy, you might want to move slightly back. You were a little close to the mic also.
All right, guys, this is Terminus live stream, an illustrious edition. As always, I am the death metal guy with the black metal guy, and today we have an extremely special guest, hotly anticipated, back from the dead. Uh, black metal guy, how do you want to lead us in on this? Talk about this infamous
All right.
figure.
Well, we are honored to be joined in the studio by a legend of primordial metal archives, a a prolific and insightful writer whose reviews were laced with a fair amount of venom and managed to wind a lot of people up, and has remained as a and then sort of disappeared in a went out went out in a hail of in a went out in a burst of glory, shall we say, or infamy, and disappeared for quite a long time. And so yeah, we've all been wondering what he's up to. We are happy to be joined in the studio tonight by Noctorn. How you doing, buddy?
Hello, everybody. This is the death metal guy, aka Agarius, aka Nocturn, aka Noah. the,
Yep.
the grand secret has been revealed.
And I am the black metal guy, aka Pavel.
There we go. Oh, thank God. Five fucking years in, we can just use names now. Thank God.
I think I wouldn't know what to do if I had to call you Noah. I'm not sure I could muster sufficient respect.
You remember the
So
early days of the show where we'd accidentally, call each other by the name and we'd have to, bleep it out in, the first year?
that's true. That's true. That's true. Oh my God, you caught me on that so many times.
Yeah, it was rough for you
Yeah.
for the first few months.
I wasn't used to the Anon life.
Oh, yeah, well, the Anon Life chose me.
Mhm.
So, yes, the grand secret has been revealed. I am the infamous Nocturn. Basically, the reveal is happening now because the information has leaked enough that I figure it just makes sense. I noticed that there were some people out there with some very strange ideas that I had died or something. No, I was just doing other shit under other names. I'm actually going to do something real quick. I am going to, if I can fucking remember how to do it, I'm going to, edit my Rate Your Music profile just as proof of life.
Mm.
Just so people know this is authentic. So, if anyone wants to see, I just updated. It's showing up under favorite artists for some reason, but proof of life for Nocturne, aka TDMG from Terminus Podcast. So there's your evidence if you guys want it. Yes, that is me. So it's interesting. For about, we've been doing the podcast for about going on 5 years now, and I was sort of surprised at how well I managed to keep it under wraps. But then I saw some people on RYM saying that Nocturne was one of the hosts of this show, and some people have commented on similarities between some of my hot takes and Nocturnes over the years. So
People in people eventually you're gonna mention all the bands you like, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
you and at a certain point it becomes how long can a man lie about his feelings for catasexual urge motivation?
Oh, you know how it was
Um,
so hard to just talk about yeah, they're a really cool band rather than spurging out for 3 hours.
mhm, mhm. It's uh, also I think there were people in the Radio Free Innsmouth comments who started to figure it out. I started to notice that.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
we started to notice the beginning of that like a year ago, I think.
yeah, I mean, I had figured that Giab from RFI had like read a bunch of my shit because of like some points I had made in reviews that he had used in some of his pieces, which is cool. I'm not saying this to throw shade at him or anything. We're all fucking borrowing from each other and developing ideas from each other, but
Yeah, it's the sincerest form of flattery. Yeah.
yeah, so that was cool, talking to Giab, catching up, and telling him, yeah, no, I'm not dead. I was just there. So that was neat. And some other people have sort of figured it out on their own. But I'm guessing somebody somewhere leaked it. I don't really give a shit. I think I'm just kind of cool with being a guy these days, so.
I can believe they figured it out. I can believe they figured it out, man.
Yeah, no,
we won't. None of our Terminators are. No member of the Terminus Black Circle would ever narc. And if they did, if they did, they would find their ribs pierced from behind by a dagger of ice.
yeah, or they would receive a Rainfall CDR in their mailbox, like not in a package, just dropped in there clearly, and they would know. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, this is kind of our big reveal. Just so you guys know, we are going to do kind of a 2025 year in review episode in a little bit here. That's not what this is, but don't worry, guys. We're going to have something for you, but that'll be more like a regular episode instead of a live stream.
We'll record at the end of the week or early next week. You'll get it by the middle of next week.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, this is going to be pretty freeform. I'm sure that there's like a lot of Q&A type stuff that people want to happen, and then Pavel, I know that you kind of got some questions together. We did the interview thing as a little bit of clickbait, but yeah, so I guess if anyone's curious about the legacy of Nocturn, feel free to ask questions, and we're gonna talk about that, and we're gonna talk about like the old digital underground of metal, circa the 2000s, mid to late 2000s, when I was most active. Because I think there's a lot of interesting things to talk about there, and a lot of the younger listeners who weren't there for that, I think, have maybe kind of strange views about like how it all actually worked. It was much more dissimilar to today than a lot of you guys might think, so hopefully we'll be able to tackle some of that.
Yeah, we had computers, but they weren't gay yet.
Yeah, they're extremely gay now.
Well, to be fair, I would never blame my loyal and my trusty hardware. But we had the internet, but it wasn't gay yet. Yeah, everyone on it was gay. That hasn't changed.
Yes, that is very true.
But I actually did spend a sort of mind-bending 10 minutes of exertion coming up with some questions for you. So I think it's the simplest format. I mean, just
yeah,
like
sure.
We'll just I think it makes sense to format it as an interview because it's your, it's your moment here, and that can organize it. And we'll inevitably end up also talking a lot about our collaboration over the years, I think. But yeah, we could just basically format this chronologically. I've got a few little things blocked out, and
yeah, sure.
we could stop it. We could stop it for questions like every 20, 30 minutes.
Yeah, that works.
Yeah. All right, cool. So yeah, the so
I like how you're laughing already.
I was just reading shit in the chat. So I guess let's talk about the origin story of Nocturn, because once upon a time you were just an innocent Floridian lad listening to with a precocious interest in extreme metal. So I know you were already into heavier stuff by early high school.
Mm-hmm.
When did you what brought you online in a big way? Were you on Rate Your Music first?
No, no. That's actually a misconception some people have on RYM. The weird thing is my legacy
Mhm.
seems to continue more on RYM than it does on Metal Archives. But I
Well, that's because Metal Archive's unpersoned you.
yeah, well, it's less unpersoned to a
Although it wasn't
degree.
entire, although for some understandable
Oh
reasons, I
yeah,
might
no,
add.
like
Yeah,
completely justified to be fucking unpersoned
yeah,
after some of the shenanigans I
yeah.
pulled. But no, so what happened was I got on RYM in like 2009 or something, and that was just to mirror my reviews onto there, as well as to cover shit that wasn't on the Metal Archive, some like quote unquote non-metal stuff, so I could review fucking gore noise tapes and shit like that. So I got on Metal Archives, like got my account I think in like 2004, and I had started listening. I had at least heard some death metal songs and stuff by like 2002 when I was like 12 years
Mhm.
old. I was downloading new metal, and then I kind of stumbled across shit. I saw Meshuggah, this band Meshuggah. I'm like, I've never heard of that. And then they were touring off of nothing at the time. And the moment they started, I was like, "Uh-oh, I'm about to ruin my life now." And I proceeded to. So after seeing Meshuggah,
It
I
is, it is like that, isn't it?
yeah, dude, you have that moment. It's like, "Oh, I'm about to fuck
Like,
everything up."
yeah, yep, yep. Oh no, I'm one of those guys.
Yeah, I'm turning into one of those guys now.
Yeah.
And now fucking
Anyway,
now I'm
yeah.
35 and it's the same thing. So so I had heard heavier stuff, and then seeing Meshuggah, I was like, fuck, I need to know what the deal is with these guys. So I started looking up information about them. And that led me into a lot of the early 2000s metal webzines. Like I remember yeah, he wants to go back on. Like the Gauntlet shit that probably doesn't exist anymore, probably early like Metal Rules stuff like that. But then I'm not sure how I found it, but I stumbled onto the Metal Archives, and I was really fascinated. I mean, it was probably just by Googling for bands. It was probably just like one of the results. So I found that website, basically the moment that I found it, it became my home base on the internet. It was like basically my homepage when I would open a fucking browser. And I noticed these guys who, at the time, were doing, at least from my, retarded little 13, 14-year-old perspective, start. But I just started writing. The earliest stuff that I submitted would have been in 2004 when I was 14. And a lot of those I rewrote in years after, but I think the earliest still existing one is like March of '05 or something for the first review I submitted. And I just started doing it.
You remember the first band you reviewed?
I think the first review I ever did was Altars of Madness. And then I think that. So I started writing in 2004, and pretty quickly after that, I started contributing to the forum and talking to people on there. So that's like a point that I want to make for people that know me off of RYM is there's a lot of people who are under the impression that Nocturn was like 10 years older than he actually was. That's not the case. Pretty much everything you see on the Metal Archives was written when I was in high school or like community college. Like, or like slightly after. I think my last review was like January of 2011 or something like that. So all of this writing was actually done over the course of like 7 years, realistically more like 5. So it's interesting to see people respond to a lot of these reviews, like, who was this guy? What was his deal? Oh, he's probably old now. Nah, dude, I was a fucking child when I was writing basically all of that shit. I find that
Which
misconception
is
very funny.
crazy because it's very obviously written by a teenager, and I don't mean that as an insult in any way. It's just it's unhinged and flamboyant and makes very bold claims
Yeah.
in ways that are really only possible when you haven't heard a certain number of albums. Um, and when you have a certain kind of just, youthful energy and um, uh, yeah, it was sort of a youthful, just sort of no inhibition isn't the right word. It's just that you sort of you actually are writing everything you think in those reviews. It's
Yeah.
and the I think I'm not sure when you got in touch with me, I of course had read your stuff already. I don't think I thought you were younger than me, but I didn't think you were older than me. You know what I mean? Maybe I assumed you were a year or two older than me in the way that like you do when anyone has been doing something longer than you.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh well, I mean, when we got in touch, I would have been 22. Hell, it's got that youthful energy.
Yeah. I feel like.
And
Yeah. I feel like.
and it's just fucking not. It's the guy.
Stream lag needs to be understood is stream lag needs to be understood is that like obviously over the years I kind of like carved out a little bit more of a style, but Metal Archives was really like a place where a lot of metal writers like were cutting their teeth doing new kinds of when I started. And then I just kind of like carried it further, doing shit in like weird styles with these like sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. But what you were really seeing there was like a kind of collaborative writing project, because all of us that wrote reviews were all talking to each other on the forums, and we were trying to one up each other with like more elaborate reviews, hotter takes, stuff like that. So it's important to remember that the Metal takes stuff like that. So it's important to remember that the Metal Archives review scene is like directly attached to the social environment of the forum at that time.
Okay. It looks like we're still having problems. Why don't we someone's saying straight up no sound. Is there a way for we could I almost wonder, would it be better to do a direct call in Discord? Right now we're in a room.
Maybe let's try that out.
Okay.
One second, guys. We're just going to try to fix that. Bear with us. Check, check.
All right. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I think, all right, guys, so we just moved to a direct call rather than a room. Let us know
And
how
can
it's
you
going.
refresh the stream or something?
I don't know that that's a thing that I can do, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing with this stuff anyway. So, hold on.
It's truly a Morrigan DDoS, as someone said in the chat.
Okay, so people are saying that it's like fixed up.
Still getting stippling from.
All right, how about now, buddy?
As of now, you sound okay.
Okay, cool. All right.
Keep talking. I suspect that hasn't fixed it. Let's try again. You know what? What we should do is, because we don't know if it's working, we should just like shoot the shit for a second and wait for everything to catch up and then see.
Yeah, we'll wait for everyone.
You know, otherwise people are gonna miss important stuff.
None of this shit's important.
So you found any you got any good picks for a year kind of year-end roundup so far?
I don't know. The new Mutilation's really good. Um,
I was wondering if, yeah, somebody told me mutilation. There was a new mutilation. I'm glad you found
New
it.
Mutilation is good. New Putridity was really good. I gotta like go back because I've just been listening to shit really randomly this year since we've been doing old content. But everybody's
Yeah.
saying that things are
I
sounding
want to
better.
see a few more people. I want a few more people confirming that it's okay
Yeah,
because
sure.
there was a lot of difference before. Yeah, no, I think both of us have really enjoyed the break from obsessively reviewing new music. So, when we do a year end this year, it's really going to be not like these are our top 10, but more just like, here are things I enjoyed this year,
Mm-hmm.
that are new. Um,
Yeah.
okay. Good for a minute or two, switching to laptop. Okay. Yeah, cool.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you
I
talking to
figured.
me on Xbox Live?
No, I don't know what he means by switching to laptop. So anyway,
Um,
okay.
Oh,
So
Hyper Shaman listens to Graveland this year. That's good to know. I'm glad to know the world isn't exploding.
dude, I just listened
Um,
to fucking Devourment and Cryptopsy and Gorgoroth pretty much all year.
Listened to Killers by Iron Maiden.
Oh, that's fun. Okay,
Yeah.
so back on track. The point that I was trying to make is like, while trying to understand the ecosystem back there of like our writing styles and the weird kind of diction that came to arise in those styles of reviews, you can't divorce the reviewing community from the social community because they were just the same thing. There were very few
Mhm.
big name reviewers who were not active on the forums, and we all talked to each other constantly. So the style emerges from a social environment, and basically one that can't like be recreated these days. The the slow posting of forums rather than social media, the lack of smartphones, the fact that you had to be like sort of invested in this process to even take part. All of these are radically different from how things operate now, literally like over 20 years later. Oh my god, it was 22 years ago that I started writing on that fucking website. Oh god. Oh shit. Anyway, so yeah, I just wanted to kind of set the stage for people if you wanted to continue.
Yeah. So, let's see. So basically, well, you were saying the style wasn't, you were kind of developing that idea that the style wasn't entirely yours. It was one that was germinating on MA. What about anywhere else on the internet? For instance, when I read your writing now, especially your sort of agarious stuff,
Yeah.
where in some ways the writing, the rapid fire book reviews and stuff are more similar to a metal art, like a more similar to one of the stripped down, sort of, you had different kinds of MA reviews, right? Some of them were very involved and essayistic. Some of them were more like you just rip it for fun.
Mm-hmm.
And the Agarius stuff has, especially like the book run throughs, has kind of an informal and polemic style that's close to a lot of Nocturn writing. When I read that stuff, I think of Jim Goad, who you've mentioned to me before.
Mm-hmm.
Like I didn't even really know about Goad until a couple of years ago. That like for whatever reason, even though I think a lot of people I read him. Um, were you influenced by like people like that at that time, like various Gonzo writers, Gonzo journalists, pundits?
Not not directly as far as I can
Mm,
remember. Like getting into Goad and stuff, that would have been like during high school, but like later on, after
mhm,
I'd already started writing. I was mostly influenced by like other guys on Metal Archives, like Cheese is Priced. He's forever the best reviewer on Metal Archives. Night Gaunt, Ultra Boris to a degree. A lot of the just like big name guys that who are familiar with the site from that era would know. I sort of looked at their shit, and then I was like, so I had written a lot as a kid. I really liked writing fiction, essays, like literally whatever. And I think that I was attracted to the idea of like, oh wow, I can just write and people will read it. And I don't have to go through some like big fucking process to like put this somewhere. Like, this is early internet where like there had to be a place that people were like paying to host, and it was not as easy to just like throw text up on the internet and have people watch it. But here it was like, oh, so we've got this like pretty large community of people doing this shit, and there's a big user base, so
right,
I know
you had an audience.
Yeah, it was really about like audience availability.
And you're getting almost a kind of editing. It's crowdsourced editing, so it's kind of chaotic and pulls you in different directions. But you get a lot of feedback from people.
Yes.
And right like somebody, it might be as simple as someone saying like, hey, finally somebody said that. Finally somebody, I don't know. What's a band that you didn't like back then that everyone liked?
DSO.
Yeah, finally somebody said that about Death Spell Omega. Like, literally, there are Metal Archives reviews after yours saying that. And then other people are like,
this guy's a fucking asshole, etc.
Unlike Nocturn's gay opinions, yes, about you can get a big spectrum of feedback.
Yeah, it's a big spectrum of feedback, and I think that it's also important for people to understand that, like, in a sense, a lot of what I was doing was experimental, or at least I was genuinely trying to push my own abilities and to play around with format and structure. I wanted to see, because I really wanted to write more. I had like a vague dream of, maybe I could like write professionally, and I wrote for a few other metal webzines at the time, like Vampire Magazine out of Holland, Grinding the Apparatus, a few different things. I jumped in and I mirrored most of those to Metal Archives.
Dude, the names are so much better than they are now.
Yes.
Oh my god, now we have like Angry Metal Guy, Toilet of Hell. Are you kidding? Grinding the Apparatus sounds like a record by fucking the one really by Asok.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, they were the Apparatus. It was actually called, I think it was just called The Apparatus, but the website was like grindingtheapparatus.com. And those were some guys from Orlando who were like mathcore dudes. And I don't even know how I got in touch with them, but they were like friends of various bands in kind of the Central Florida scene. And, yeah, so I wrote for them. They were cool. Vampire Magazine, those were good guys. That was my first... I started writing for Vampire Magazine when I was 14 or 15. That was my first, like, introduction to, like, the metal promo cycle and shit. Yeah, so yeah, there's a lot of deliberate experimentation going on, not just by myself, but others. There's a lot of people trying to cut their teeth on, like, improving their writing. There were a lot of people talking on the forums about, like, how can I write better reviews? Or people would ask each other, like, hey, man, I really like this one. What was the idea here? Like, there was, like, involved writing conversation back in the day.
That's cool.
Yeah, and I think that's why it was such a fertile ground for, like, creativity. I would argue that, like, probably 90% of what we see in so-called modern metal journalism really originates from the Metal Archives. I mean, because there was just so much content, and there were so many people talking to each other, and, like, doing, like, almost writer's workshop shit. Having contests to see who could write, like, the most reviews for unreviewed records within a certain allotted time. Shit like that. Just like little fun games that we would play to try to sharpen each other up. And that was really cool. I mean, those are the days that I look back on really fondly. was that sense of like real intense creative energy, and the idea of like, hey, we can just do our own journalism, like fuck Metal Hammer and Terrorizer and stuff. All those reviews are like one paragraph long and they don't fucking tell you anything about the record. Now we can just do literally whatever we want, and the results were invariably fucking way better than most of what was going on in print mags or anything.
Yeah, well, it's interesting. A couple things about that. I think if it's true that 99% of the current metal writing had its root in metal archives, I think it would be better.
That's fair,
Um,
yeah.
I think many of these guys probably did eventually start reposting their stuff to MA, but I feel like there's a real difference. Even though there was inevitably a lot of crossover, there's a real difference between MA writing and music journalist writing.
Yeah, it's better. Yeah.
And yeah, MA writing is almost always better. It was a real different animal from what was being offered in certainly in the metal media and even in places like broader, say, uh, punk rock journalism stuff, where usually the quality of writing was a little bit higher than in the metal press, and there might be some people who are genuine writers. Still, on the whole, Metal Archives was not only better but a different kind of thing, in part because you were far more likely to find a Metal Archives writer talking about the music in a way that was interesting, talking about actually how the music works.
Yeah, it was.
We've tried to push that even further on Terminus, and
Mhm.
there's some way the podcast format lends itself to that, in a way that it's it's harder to do on the page. But I think that's the thing that always interested us both in music criticism is the actual mechanics of the songwriting. And Metal Archives guys really tackled that. Whereas usually, even if you read a great rock journalist, the
Mhm.
things he's going to say that are really interesting are usually more like general observations about the atmosphere or spirit of the music, or some interesting comparisons about influences, or, if it's real bottom of the barrel stuff, like anecdotes about the band.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I mean, who is that?
yeah,
Actually,
it,
I would say one influence for me was
mhm.
who is that legendary dickhead rock critic from like early Rolling Stone, like 60s, 70s? Fuck, I always
I
forget
don't
the
know. I
guy's
know
name.
you and I both like Lester Bangs, but he wrote for Cream.
I th-
Did he
it
also?
it might actually be Lester Bangs that I'm thinking of. That or like a very similar guy,
Maybe
but
they kicked him out of Rolling Stone. Yeah.
but that would definitely be like an influence because my dad turned me on to like Rolling Stone when I was a kid, and he's I mean he was my gateway to everything because he was really into 70s psych rock. He got me into Black Sabbath and AC/DC when I was really young,
Hmm.
and
Cool.
and yeah, and he was my dad's also into writing and books and stuff. So I read voraciously as a kid. I started writing when I was just like a small child and shit. It was something I was always really passionate about. But as far as influences go, yeah, I bet I saw some like early cool guy rock journalism stuff, and that probably worked its way in there.
Oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. The it's cool to get that early. Yeah, it's cool that you had that readily available
Hmm.
as a reference point.
Yeah.
I remember I really liked well, that's I had my own figures like that. I don't think I was reading Lester Bangs in high school, but there were other things.
Yeah.
The uh so we could go a couple different ways from there. I what about the other stuff you were reading in high school? Was it just like uh I mean, I know you were by the time we met, you had read a bunch of interesting stuff. I mean, was there anything yeah, well, was it stuff you were getting from were you just like reading the best stuff that they assigned you in school, or were you like devouring a bunch of stuff outside of that?
Like if we're talking about like just like my personal reading than a lot of genre fiction, just like a lot of horror and sci-fi and stuff. But I did
Yeah,
have
yeah.
I did have an appreciation for classics. Like I got introduced to Hemingway in high school, which immediately became like it's like I am going to uncritically incorporate this as part of my personality now. I remember getting a little bit more into poetry when I was like 17. I got into like British Romantic poetry, like Wordsworth, Coleridge, that kind of shit.
I remember, yeah, you'd read Coleridge. Yeah, that's cool.
Wilkins, why are you yelling? I understand you're on the live stream and you want to be a big fancy boy, but you don't have to shout. You can peep softly and they'll love you, but, well, whatever. And then he peeps softly. How nice of him. Like it's hard to remember because honestly I was like voraciously consuming fucking like music journalism content. I was like reading tons of fucking reviews. As many as I wrote, I read 10 times as many. Yeah, I would say like just like the best of classic literature. Obviously, my parents had turned me on to like a lot of like classics and shit when I was younger. I had read the gamut of like high school reading by like the end of middle school, pretty much. So like I was pretty set. And then like it was probably during high school when I started to encounter more like actual experimental writing that I ended up getting really excited. That I think the big secret maybe of like me and the Nocturn identity and stuff is like at the end of the day what I am more than anything is an art fag. I really like experimental art and performance art and sort of meta stuff, weird I like to play around with formats and with structures of things. So it wasn't really until high school that I started to encounter more of that as the internet opened up, because obviously when you're a 15-year-old, you're not going to like run into Bourget naturally or something. But once that stuff started...
Borges.
Yeah, Borges, yeah, whatever. He's dead, so it doesn't matter. Yeah, so
one of my favorite things is deliberately mispronouncing French, so we could do that to Spanish too.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I think that like that's what got me really excited, and that's probably where you start to see the really weird turn in my reviews, and I start doing like much more kind of experimental, weird stuff that again only probably lands half the time, but everyone has to remember it's like there are failures in there because I'm actually trying new things. And
Yeah, sure.
And a lot of people were doing that. That's why if you read reviews from like '05 to '09, you'll see so much weird shit.
Yeah, I mean, it's the other thing I was going to say is that it's kind of what you guys were doing with this. You kind of had a Metal Archives, which is sort of an informal writing dojo. And it was kind of like workshopping.
Yeah.
Like the workshopping in creative writing programs, like MFAs and whatever. And then the undergrad programs that are modeled on them. But the difference is, like workshopping is almost always terrible for writing because it's an audience of peers you haven't chosen, and you're kind of like required to listen to them to some degree, and you can't, it's it's not it's not an audio. They call it peer review or peer editing or whatever, but it's not, right? Because these are not your peers.
Yeah, they're just guys.
And I mean that both in terms of everyone's at different levels and also just like they have nothing in common with you necessarily. So like what I've heard is that the sort of the workshop style. There's many writers will tell you that the MF, even ones who've been through it, will say that the sort of creative writing workshop style is a mediocritization engine because you're essentially writing for a committee.
No, I agree. And like,
and And but the Metal Archives version is different because it's a lot more freewheeling. You don't have the uh yeah, you don't have you have a lot more freedom about who you engage with and how, and there are people who really share a lot of your same passions.
Yes, and the other like really important thing is that like unlike an actual writing workshop, people are fucking assholes to each other like nonstop. Like we were so fucking mean to each other. We would just like someone would post a review with a hot take and like people would just call you a fucking retard on the forum, and
Right. And unfortunately, if you say that in a creative writing workshop, the girl cries, and then,
yeah.
everyone calls you a bigot, and then you get kicked out of the program, and yeah, it's no good.
Yeah, but it's like I think that that's actually crucial, and I don't begrudge any of that. Like honestly, one of the things that I'm most fond of with that era of metal discourse was just how fucking mean everyone was to each other, because like when you do that, when you create an environment where people can like basically just say whatever the fuck they want to you, well, one, obviously you get better and more salient critique, and two, it creates an open environment, ironically. Like, I feel that when you have a deliberately nice conversational environment where that niceness is enforced, when you enforce niceness, genuine niceness becomes impossible. So the friendships that I formed with people on that forum were far more legitimate than a lot of internet friendships I formed later on in life, because back then the internet really was a third space where you were not expected to behave based on standard social decorum. And with that, the relationships that you form with people, the advice that you trade to each other, actually all becomes far more legitimate.
Right, because they're allowed to practice a certain kind of radical honesty,
Yeah,
maybe.
well, it's not just honesty.
Um,
It's like when you create an environment where everyone can say everything, you can sort of assume good faith as a result. It's like if a guy calls me a fucking asshole retard, he really thinks it. And if I say that a guy wrote something really outstanding that made me rethink a record, then I'm probably being legitimate about that too. Was there clout chasing? Like, kind of, in an extremely minor way, but it was very internal. It wasn't like what you see now, where everyone is just sort of like, uh, where people are doing, their 2 sentence, all lowercase letterboxed review, hoping that it goes viral on Twitter or something. There was no mechanism for that. So everybody's opinions were much more deeply felt back then, I think, because there wasn't nearly as much of an incentive to bullshit.
right. And there were, whereas the metal journalist sphere that emerged in parallel to that, on the metal journalist sphere, which arose from the blogs, we could call them second generation metal
Yeah.
journalists, had nothing but incentive to bullshit. Um, because the entire game there was about chasing access to basically free music from bands you liked and to attention from bands you liked. So you wanted access to promos from the PR people. So you were always kissing everyone's ass on Twitter, and it basically became a system where promos were dispensed to be rewarded with good reviews. Um,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, you're
it
basically
put
in.
all the power, all of these this huge wealth of independent journalists uh actually shifted all of the power to the labels and the PR people. And then you also had journalists working as PR people, which made it extraordinarily incestuous. And then so the clout chase was miserable. My some of my old friends referred to it as the metal friendship club.
Yeah, that's a large part of it, but there's also like more simply just like chasing the dream of revenue. So like over the time that I was writing, the internet transformed completely. Like so I start in '04 and I'm basically done by 2010. What happens right in the middle of that, and I've talked about this on the Discord server before, is the release of the iPhone.
Also, you're not done by 2010. I think you kept Nocturning into early 2012.
Oh, I did? Okay, so, alright, so it wasn't early 2011, it was early 2012 when I do the last review.
His memories from that period of time are a little blurry.
I was on a shit ton of drugs, but I'm sure we'll talk about that. So, so the iPhone comes out, I think, '07, and it takes a while for that to reach saturation, but by the time I'm like wrapping up in 2011, 2012, that saturation point has been hit. Everyone has a smartphone. Every single person has access to the internet. So now that like bare minimum bar of technical aptitude is no longer necessary. Which results in the internet getting really fucking stupid really quickly. And honestly, like, even before I, like, pissed everyone off and flounced, I was sort of, like, getting out of the metal archives by the last couple years there. I was posting...
You were pretty disenchanted with it. Yeah.
I was deeply disenchanted with it because I saw what happened. Like, the real eternal summer started in 2007 for me. Where all these new guys started coming onto the forum, guys younger than me, you know, the new generation of like, you know, early high school teenagers coming on. But these guys fucking sucked for the most part.
Wait, in 2007 even?
No, it took a little while. I would say that things really started to like, I started to really notice the downturn around like '09. Now, this is all like many years ago, so I'm probably off on dates and shit. I'm kind of shooting from the hip. But yeah, I'd say around '09. Honestly, when I started...
That sounds about right to me.
When I started talking to you, it was kind of out of a desire to, like, strike out and get away from the metal archive scene. You know?
I remember this. Yes, I think you might have made that clear in some of our first emails.
Yeah, because it was starting to fucking suck. The social environment... Sorry?
Oh, sorry. Then we can put a time on that. That would have been, I think, very late 2010 or very early 2011. I think late 2010, and then it took us a couple months to get things going.
Okay, yeah.
But, yeah, so... Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So, it was... Yeah, like, the social environment started to get shitty. A lot of the old guard had kind of left the metal archives. Like, a lot of my friends had sort of dropped out of it. It's, you know, it wasn't my place anymore. It wasn't the place that I grew up on. Because, like, it's obviously extremely gay and cringe to admit, but Metal Archives was, like, literally my home. And it's weird how many things are involved in a story like this. So, for instance, a huge part of this hinges on the fact that I went to a high school that was, like, on the other side of town from me. So, it was, like, extremely difficult to see my IRL friends. Like, you know, I would have had to get a ride from my parents, or they would have had to get a ride from theirs. So... my access to in-person socialization, it was just much more demanding. So I ended up hanging out on the internet a lot because that was just always available. And I bet that's like a similar case to a lot of people. And yeah, obviously I'm like a fucked up autistic nerd and everything, but it was also just like, well, these are the friends that I have fucking available to me. So, and it's like... why did I write so many reviews? Because I was a teenager who didn't have friends around, and I would sit in the back of my American history class, and I'd write fucking reviews about Bolt Thrower. That's just, like... like, it was my primary hobby for several years, was, you know, I would...
Sorry, Dad, this is American history.
Yeah. So let me go up a little bit. Let's do a quick break to just kind of like look at some Q&A stuff. There's people talking about buffering.
Yeah. We'll do some questions, and then I've got a question for after that.
Sure.
That would probably be good from there.
Let's see. So, people talking about buffering. We already talked about what we're listening to this year. Birth of the Nadir said, was I on the Nuclear War Now and FMP forums? I was not. I was aware of those things, but all of my, like, internet socialization at that time was on Metal Archives. Because, like, I was there to write reviews, and then I got pulled into the social aspect, like, as a direct result of that, and I enjoyed that. I didn't feel the need to find, like, another place to talk about metal, because at that time, like, that was the place to talk about metal. Yeah, you can go on NWN and FMP, but that's, like, those are pretty specialized areas. Metal Archives had everything, you know? You'd have threads of people talking about, like, fucking Sonata Arctica right next to a thread of people talking about Devourment. And I still have, like, a pretty wide range of interests in metal, so I liked being able to do all that, whereas NWN and FMP were a little bit more narrowly focused at the time. Max Stash is like, Nocturn, I recently made a heavy metal rarities account to download more demos and shit from. What do you know about that site? Yeah, I've heard of it. Is that like a BitTorrent tracker or something? But I don't know, man. I don't really... I did all of my, like, obsessive demo collecting when I was a kid, so I don't really, like, do that anymore. Dr. Pibb, do I still hate the sword with the same burning passion today? Honestly, man, it's been so many fucking years since I've heard the sword, I don't know how I would react. I bet it still sucks, though. I will say, like, there are some, like, important exceptions, but for the most part, my opinions on bands and records haven't changed all that much over the years. There are some, like, missteps that I made back then, but I'd say, like, 95% of my opinions are still, like, basically the same these days, so yeah, the sword sucks, and never mattered, and just fucking completely awful. People talking about the sword, people talking about records that they're listening to this year, and let's see. Nothing here says, found my old review from Meshuggah on RYM as a kid, decided to see what else you reviewed. I then listened to Catasexual Urge Motivation because of your review. You ruined my taste in music as a kid. Thank you. You're welcome, dude. I first heard Catasexual Urge Motivation when I was 14. And I was like, uh-oh, this is the best thing I've ever heard in my life. And it still is. Dr. Pibb also says, what was your Black Doom band you mentioned having in some of those old reviews called? Did it ever release anything? Dr. Pibb, if you can, like, reference which reviews you're talking about, I'm trying to think of, like, Black Doom band. I did a lot of, like, doomy stuff, but it was usually more on the Death Doom side of things, so you'd have to... tell me what reviews you're talking about, and I will, I'll see if I can remember exactly what you mentioned, so...
I mean, that was probably Abortionist, right?
Maybe, yeah, it might have been Abortionist. Yeah, Abortionist was,
Yeah, Dr. Pibb, have you listened to the Abortionist record? Because it's out now.
Yeah, that's 2009, that's like right in the middle of Nocturn era, actually, which is kind of funny. It's the first good thing I ever did. Okay, so I think we're caught up on most of the questions, so if you want to...
Well, we should tell him if he hasn't heard of it. It's the guys on Bunsen Burner just released the Abortionist record, which was languishing in the vaults for aeons.
Yeah.
So you want to hear, I don't know if it's exactly the band Noah was talking about, but or sorry, I don't know if it's exactly the band you, Dr. Pibb, were talking about, but if you want to hear an early Black Doom band from Nocturn, this is it.
Yeah.
Abortionist, and it's on the Bunsen Burners Recording Bandcamp.
Oh, thanks for the plug.
And
buddy.
it's very good.
Yeah. By the way, Bestial Conclave asked, who had the best drum programming outside of Catasexual Urge Motivation? That is Godflesh. So Simple answer. And Godflesh clearly
That might be
influenced.
cheating because that's industrial. That might be cheating because that's actual industrial music.
Yeah,
The
but
question only becomes interesting when it's a when it's a full-on metal band.
well, Catasexual was clearly influenced heavily by Godflesh for their programming. Apart from that, God, what's really good drum programming in metal? That's an interesting. I mean, there's shit that I really like. I mean, I love the drum machine in Mortician, but is that good programming? I think it's good for the music.
Yeah. A lot of what we like is bad drum programming. What about the is that second app was with no human intervention? Is that drum programming or just triggers?
I can't recall. I think that might have been like a programming on the record, Real Drummer Live thing. But I'm not.
See.
I'm
Well,
not
that would count then because even a lot of industrial bands do that. That with no human intervention lineup. Yeah, dog. There ain't no drummer, so I would say that has with no human intervention has some pretty good drum programming.
Yeah.
Berserker.
Yeah.
You know.
Oh, and Dr. Pibb asked one last question. Are you still in touch with Plague from Senthil? Occasionally. We shoot each other a couple of emails every couple of years. He's a really cool guy, but we're like we were never like incredibly tight. We like respected each other. And it's funny, actually, Pale Horse Recordings, the label that put out Senthil and Navathe and stuff like that, I think the last release on that label was one of mine with the band Kav, the Chattering Medicine EP. Pale Horse put out that cassette. So that's kind of neat. But yeah, no, Plague seems to be doing well. He's we don't talk about regular life a whole lot. We talk about what we're doing musically, and I try to bully him into doing more Navathe, etc. But yeah, he's a cool guy, and he is. I will say to everyone, he is incredibly real. I've met him once when I was much younger, and he was a very cool guy and very, very polite and friendly, chill to hang out with. Definitely weird. Definitely like, okay, so this Torture Doom thing is real. We'll leave it at that.
No, it's always wonderful to meet people who are actually metal.
Yes, and he's 100% that.
I think you and I were talking about that the other week in relation to the old Noctturn stuff and just what the internet was like. We could talk about that more later, but basically just like it used to be a lot less common for well-adjusted people and for like normal people to listen to this music.
Yes,
and
that's very important.
It used to be a lot more common. It used to be a lot more common to encounter people who were very obviously metal fans in ways that made them in ways that would be off-putting to someone who weren't also a metal fan, right? Whether that's being, extreme, sort of confrontationally direct or cold and sort of cold and withdrawn, or just obviously schizophrenic, or or just like sort of unhinged political militant before it was cool. It was people who were obviously suicidal or had crippling depression. These were the people that you interacted with, and these were the real metalheads, and all of them had things. I guess I could say all of us had things about us that would have made us according to some standards, uncool.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because it's so important to remember that, like, metal is still counterculture, in the mid 2000s. By the late 2000s, that's starting to change dramatically, and that was one of the things that kind of put me off, was like, so many people were doing much more like regular guy shit, and that was getting like really sort of obnoxious. I mean, back in the day, back in like 2005 Metal Archives, those people were like fucking insane, largely. Like, if you were into obscure black metal in 2005, you were still like deeply mentally ill. And that wouldn't change until like probably right around 2010. You know, once Pitchfork once Pitchfork opened the fucking floodgates to like guys living in Brooklyn to like listen to Leviathan and stuff, it was sort of all over. I mean, it's not all over. It's never all over. We retreat, we regroup in a new space, etc. But that's also the reason why any sort of open forum for talking about metal these days fucking sucks. The only good stuff is in like private Discord servers. You know, because like the barrier to entry is so fucking low, and culturally in America and sort of on the internet in general, we've become so like fucking permissive. Gatekeeping doesn't exist anymore. And I think that's one of the things that I detected, like seeing the Metal Archives transform in the late 2000s, early 2010s was like...
Let's put a pin in it real quick.
Sure.
Let's put a pin in it real quick, and I'll go piss, and then we'll get into sort of decline and fall of Metal Archives and a few other topics.
That sounds good. All right, guys. So if you have any questions you want to throw in while he's urinating, just let me know. Dr. Pib.
Station.
Go and piss. Dr. Pib, the Nivathe record is fucking outstanding. My estimation of it has only grown over the years. I'm probably going to get a Nivathe tattoo sometime soon. I've had that planned for a long time. Let's see. I want my sugar. Great drum programming on Onset of Putrefaction. Yeah, that's like really, really, really fucking good. Let's see. Landfish, my thoughts on Autothrall. Look, I don't really like his writing. I used to be shittier about him back in the day because he kind of rolled in and just started, like, shitting out so many reviews. That, I mean, I swear, you know, there were times where every new review on the front page would be an Autothrall review. And it felt like a lot of it was pretty low effort, and I wasn't a fan. I still don't love it, but I don't begrudge the guy personally. He's doing what's fun to him, so I guess that's fine. But Autothrall's arrival and his popularization wasn't really part of the decline of Metal Archives, but I think it was kind of a sign of it. Brutal Death records that I liked this year, New Putridity, I guess the new diphenylchlorosine is going to be coming out soon. I'm looking forward to that. Honestly, man, I just didn't listen to a ton of records in 2025. HP Tubcraft, 2025 Best of Show. We are going to be doing that probably next week as like a regular episode. Suga, speaking of Pitchfork Core and pseudo-intellectual shit, what do you think of Liturgy? Come on, man. What the fuck do you think I think of Liturgy? They're a garbage band for stupid fucking idiots. It sucks. I don't think it was actually influential or mattered in any way to the metal scene, but it was an indication of where things were going. And obviously the various moves that Liturgy has made over the course of their careers has just solidified that fucking estimation. What a fucking shit band. I do actually hate Liturgy more than... They're probably, like, bottom 10 bands. Let's see, Canatico 8, thoughts on Kralis. I've heard Krallis. It seems okay. It's like not something I'm interested in at all. Isn't that Colin Marstead? Colin Marstead's one of those guys who's like obviously objectively very talented, but he produces almost nothing that I'm interested in listening to. So I'll say that it's like it's fine. It's just not for me. It's New York shit. It's whatever. Let's see. Bestial Conclave, Chuck Schuldiner, King of the World. Chuck Schuldiner died of AIDS. And the tumor in his brain ate all the memories of his loved ones and everything before he died. Nobody liked Chuck while he was alive. His reputation as being the nicest person in the fucking planet is a completely manufactured story created after his death. He was known to be an unlikable shithead. That's why he could never retain a band from album to album. Would I still fight Liturgy if they came to my town? Yes. You can hold me to that. Let's see, Destruction Ritual. Did you listen to the new Cavum that came out last year? Honestly, man, Cavum is Pavel's thing. I think they're basically good, but I've never found them that remarkable, so you'd really have to ask him. Hoping the new Oldowan graces our ears soon. Hey, what's up? Yeah, dude, new Oldowan not coming out in 2025 was crippling to me psychologically. So I am desperate, and yes, whenever it comes out, it will be album of the year. So Pavel
Chuck Schuldiner died of AIDS.
Yes, he did. I was just talking about how Chuck Schuldiner died of AIDS.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a whole... I did my whole bit about how Chuck fucking sucks. Charnel Vault, Sean Reiner and Paul Masvidal were 30 times as straight as Chuck was. When am I reviewing more Sotos? Soon. It's been hard, man. I'm working full-time. I'm going to school full-time, and I'm trying to keep up on mainline Terminus stuff. It's gonna happen. I've got a script mostly written. It's just a matter of finding the time. Let's see. What do you think of the edgy teenagers or bands that use NSBM as a flag to express their extremity and cultness in black metal? Well, listen, buddy, like, there was actually more of that when I started. That's something that people... that's something a lot of people don't understand is, like, back in the mid-2000s, you would just do an NSBM project for fun. Like, there were guys who were very serious about it, but plenty of the NSBM bands, that was like an aesthetic. There were plenty of those guys who were not seriously political in any way, and they were like, fuck, well, this is like edgy and cool. Yeah, this is like dark. Let's do an NSBM band. I would actually say that there's more serious guys, like ideologically serious guys, doing NSBM today than there were 20 years ago, which is weird, but...
And on the other hand, there was an entire genre for that, and it was called black metal.
Good point. Yeah. Yeah. Back then, we just called it black metal, brother.
Yeah. I mean, we've talked on the, is there a thing where some of the new kids claiming the NSBM banner don't quite understand the chain of musical and cultural transmission that's happened, or maybe have or because of their sort of politics that they've developed on the internet outside of metal, might have a relatively narrow view of black metal, right? Yeah, we've talked about that on the show. It's I think we've probably been one of the places that has criticized that kind of NSBM game of telephone more than most other places. But yeah, you're not going to find either of us, moralizing about kids making NSBM bands. Fucking go for it.
Yeah, do whatever, dude. Like, fucking, yeah. But yeah, obviously, yes,
yeah,
there are cringe Vothana LARPers out there, but like, there always has been,
Yeah, you could find cringe LARPers in every genre. And one thing that's happening is, unfortunately, as more and more as black metal proper is taken over by more and more cringe larpers of all kinds and is sort of losing its essence. More and more people are reaching for the NSBM label to set themselves apart as seriously committed to the ideology, when in the 90s they just would have said, I'm a black metal band, yeah, I'm an elitist, I'm a nationalist, I'm a pagan, or whatever, right? That was just the music.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just is what it is. So that's why you'll find a lot of people who these days, if you quizzed them on their NS ideology, wouldn't sound anything like you might imagine they would sound like. um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's so there's been some label drift, basically. It's nowhere the extremity. It's no, you can't just, you can no longer alienate the right people and, by just saying you're a black metal band, right? You're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, I love black metal. I it's
Yeah, now you gotta, like, listen to xenophobic ejaculation and piss people off, and it's like, fuck. And that's pretty miserable in and of itself. Like, I wouldn't recommend that, so.
Dude, a xenophobic ejaculation sounds kind of miserable. It sounds like one of those things that would be like thwarting or something, or like it goes back inside. It goes back inside. Um, yeah, you're like trying to, you're attempting to, but it's too xenophobic, so it goes back in.
Real quick,
Yeah,
I'll
and-
just, like, quickly run through the last couple questions. Do I still like Melancholia, The Dark Reflection of Your Soul? I actually listened to that record a couple years ago. It's still very good. It's not 100%. I think it was just so wild and different at the time that I was, like, blown away by it. That being said, it's still very good. Production harms it a little bit, but I think that it's very interesting. And last one, Suga asking, now that you mentioned Vothana, what do you think of them? I think that Vothana, every Vothana song has 1.5 minutes of the coolest shit I've ever heard, and then 10 minutes of the most boring shit I've ever heard. I can't wait for him to do a punky Eisenwinter record where all the songs are just the 2 minutes of good parts. So, that's pretty much my view on him. Okay.
I haven't heard Mongrel. I have been listening to a lot of death metal influenced hardcore lately, but mostly stuff from the 90s and early 2000s. But Mongrel, let me tell you, if you like punkish bands called Mongrel, you should listen to Mongrel, which was one of the first House of First Light bands. That was in fact, one of the first two, if not the first, House of First Light band, which was I think it was the first one, which is a strange mix, second, strange mix of sort of Ildjarn type, rattling Ildjarn type sort of punk black with wandering Blazebirth Holly song structures. So I'll trade you one for one there, but I will check out the metalcore band.
Nice. Yeah, I'd be curious about that. Let's see. Okay, so do we want to talk about, like, decline and fall of Metal Archives? And, like, my decline and fall, I guess.
Well, yeah, I thought we would do Decline and Fall of Metal Archives, and then we'd get to Nocturn the character, which would be also bound up with the Decline and Fall of Nocturn.
Okay, so circa,
Yeah.
like, around 2009, that's when old guard start dropping off. And by old guard, I mean, like, people older than me on the website. So the interesting thing about Metal Archives in 2005 was that, like, there were two peaks, like, it was like a two-peaked bell curve in terms of age. One peak was at 17, and the other one was at, like, fucking 45. So it created a really interesting dynamic of, like, kids like me who got into metal through, like, peer-to-peer file sharing versus guys that were doing tape trading in, like, the late 80s, early 90s. So a lot of the really eccentric opinions you'll see on the website are sort of a result of that. Obscure, like, NWO BHM bands being, like, more recognized than they typically would be just because there was, like, the population that had those 7 inches back in the day. But yeah, so around 2009, those guys start to drop off. A lot of the older guys start to leave. I think this is around the time that like Gutter Scream, who was such a cool guy. He was like one of the old guys on the forum. He did a ton of tape trading back in the 80s and 90s. He was really like a thrash and traditional metal guy, as well as like the earliest black and death metal. He never really got further into extreme metal, but that's cool. His knowledge was incredible. Guys like him, Napero, who is a Finnish guy, an older Finnish guy.
I remember Napero.
Napero is a really fucking cool guy. I don't know what haunt to him, but I wish him the best. I hope that he bought. I hope that his sauna construction went okay. Night Gaunt, he was an older guy. He started to kind of fade out around that era, and he was one of the mods. Really, like, a lot of the old moderators started to fade out, and newer guys started phasing in, and the dynamic really changed. Because the average age of the moderators went way down. It was based off, like, a different set of social standards, kind of cultivated elsewhere on the internet, and it wasn't fun anymore, because a lot of the insane people got banned. Which was highly destructive.
Oh yeah, that gets back to our early conversation. So basically, there was an ideological and to some extent cultural purge that happened within Metal Archives right at the time that it was starting to happen, say, in gaming and other things.
Mm-hmm.
But Metal Archives was actually quite early to this, in part because it was a very self-enclosed little community. So it was easy for a small group of people to seize the reins and start to impose their own standards. And of course, we are talking about Morrigan here, although also her various simps and flunkies.
Morrigan was like pretty early on the cutting edge of like liberal identity politics. And she was always like liberal, but sort of like she didn't give a fuck for a long time. Because dude, it's like I've said this before, I'll say it again. Like old Metal Archives, like early to mid 2000s, like tons of those guys are just fucking Nazis. And they're like out and out about it. There's guys like in NSBM bands on the forum. Everyone knows it. Nobody gives a fuck. Winter Solace Records got its start on Metal Archives. Doug is going to claim that it started in 2016. That is a lie. His first release was in 2005. I know because I talked to him a little bit back in the day on Metal Archives, and he was releasing like weird Nazi video game music on CDR. And Doug is the same age as me. He started the label when he was 15. So,
there was a whole genre of ancient Metal Archives review. We've talked about the writing that was good. There was also writing that was bad, but in a cool way.
Yeah.
Which is linked to, there was a kind of zine review in, I guess, the third kind of metal journalism metal writing we haven't talked about. We've talked about we've talked about Metal Archives or Anus style versus blogosphere, second gen music journalist style. And we've talked about the old school music journalists, like the print establishment print mag people. So there's a third or fourth kind, which is zine writing.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, if you read a lot of the legendary zines from the late 80s, early 90s, those were obviously important. You won't learn very much from the writing often because what they convey is a vibe, right?
Yeah, they convey enthusiasm.
New Abigail is poser raping. Fuck. I love this. I drunk. Hails. There, that's the review.
That's a great Abigail review, honestly.
Thank you. You would see a lot like that, and there was a very early stage of Metal Archives writing like that was like that,
mm-hmm.
and a lot of the NS guys did that. So you could be scrolling down through a record and be like, you read some like pro forma kind of journalisty shit, you can read a lengthy, considerate, literary Nocturn review or one of the better Autothrall pieces. When he put in effort, it was quite good. Um, and then you could get to a guy just being like, artist is weak and obviously Jewish. Next. And that would be the whole review. It was and it was part of the unhinged essence of the site that there was this kind of grab bag, and I always thought it was hilarious that reviews like that, whether or not they were political, right? Some of them weren't at all, but like there was an before Metal Archive started, I guess there was moderation creep, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
It was initially Metal Archives was the true Wild West. Then they had some a kind of interesting and well-meaning attempt at like, let's write real articles, guys. And what that had the effect of doing was it probably was related to this workshopping you guys were doing of each other's stuff, and maybe it was good in some way, but it also got rid of this kind of totally informal gonzo fanzine writing. And then after that, we moved on to ideological moderation, where things started to get writers started to get booted for saying the wrong thing, or reviews started getting excluded because of that. But the hilarious thing is you can still find on the site some of those first generation Gonzo zine review freakouts that are still there. Even though like they had a rule against, I did some MA stuff too, and eventually they had a rule against like your review has to have like 2 or 3 paragraphs in it, right? You can't just write one paragraph.
Yeah.
You can't go in order through a track list. Just like sort of doing a track by track review. They had some pretty stringent editorial standards, but there still are floating around these ancient reviews that are pre-editorial review standards, some of which are gloriously retarded, some of which are actually very insightful but concise. I always really liked the reviews. There's like 10 reviews by War Crimer from
Infernal War.
Infernal War. Yeah, who I got to see at Metal Throw, which was awesome. But that guy did amazing old style Metal Archives reviews. His review of Sorin his Sorin review is legendary to me. It's so basically there was an older style of there was this sort of editorial filtration of the writing, and then increasingly it also became editorial filtration of politics. And I assume people were also getting banned for other things.
Yeah, I mean, people were getting banned just for being annoying shitheads. Dude, I got banned from the Metal Archives like fucking...
Weren't you banned many times?
Oh, dude, probably 5 times. Like temp bans, and then apparently apparently Nightgaunt would really go to bat for me, and he'd get me unbanned a lot of the time. He was a cool guy. But I would just piss people off. I like trolled fucking constantly. I was just like turbo posting, just like straight autistic teenager shit. So I ate a bunch of bans, and I kept coming back. But then by the end there, like, I kind of didn't give a shit anymore. Because it just sort of like... It just stopped mattering. And like, and the thing is, like, as fun as it would be to like blame Morrigan, like, and I do to a large extent, there's a ton of shit going on at the same time. It's like Morrigan starts to really suck. A bunch of like new kids come in who are just like a lot more sensitive and like can't read the room. Girls start joining in like larger population, which is sorry ladies, but like past a certain point, past a certain point, you girls are kind of like the death knell of cool internet spaces. There's a threshold.
I think we already understand this now. Once they hit a critical mass, it's not just some of them, the ones who are annoying, start trying to enforce the norms that would make them comfortable. Others don't. Others were chill the whole time, right? But then, even without women trying to enforce those norms, you get men's attitude changes, right? It's just men will start moderating themselves for the women and start pandering to them. There's that great anecdote about the room full of Marines, and then there's like room full of Marines and a female support and they're all standing around
Yeah.
talking in a dignified way. Female support unit enters, and suddenly the guys are like doing handstands and shit.
Oh yeah, dude.
Right?
It's
Just
a
the vibe.
disaster.
Yeah, it's yeah.
Yeah, so
It just
but yeah, so it was like a confluence of a bunch of things, as well as just like internet's easier to get on, and more people with dumb fucking opinions decide to get on there, and like it becomes more. So Metal Archives was never like officially a space for like extremely underground shit, but like that's like a lot of what we talked about was like we were talking about, LLN bands. We were talking about Funeral Doom. We were talking about obscure NWOBHM, this kind of stuff. As these sort of Johnny come latelys came in, it all decayed into like Century Media nuclear blast slop.
Yep.
They didn't have interesting taste anymore. And part of the reason why the taste wasn't interesting anymore is I've talked about this before, and like maybe it's like a hot take. I think that like learning about metal through like lists of canonical albums on Rate Your Music like does not create any sense of taste. There are these fucking kids, and I started to notice this like later on in my time in the Metal Archives, is like kids would come on and be like, oh, how do I get into black metal? Like, what are important black metal albums to listen to? And my answer has always been, get 5 CDs with logos you can't read where the covers are in black and white and listen to them. And if you basically like that experience, you're into black metal. Like, yeah, you can listen to Day Mysteries and In the Nightside Eclipse and Pure Holocaust and think those are all great, but those are just like, everyone fucking loves those. Like, if you like music, you probably will like those if you hear them because they're just great. Like, it doesn't tell you anything about the genre. The genre is not composed of its greatest albums. The genre is composed of like 100,000 records that nobody gives a shit about except for us. That is where the heart of the music lives. So when kids come in and they're like, well, fuck, man, I've listened to everything from Norway. What should I do next? I'm like, what you should do next is like listen to another genre of music. Like, you're checking boxes off of a fucking list. You're listening to these albums in this like sterile, sort of like,
Oh, one of the most annoying phrases that these types have is "I need to get into X."
oh, dude, it sucks, dude. I remember when that shit started.
People will say that to me in real life, like, "Oh man, I need to get into black metal." It's like, if you aren't already, you probably don't, man.
Also, no, you don't need to. Nobody needs to be doing
Yeah,
any of this
exactly.
shit.
That's what I mean. There's like, I'm not judging you for listening to one of the most confrontational and annoying sounding genres of music in history. Like, you don't need to you can listen to whatever you like, man. You're not missing out on like you know, yeah, like, I mean, you don't have to access this side of the human experience. And like,
I tell people fucking not to do it. Like,
yeah, there is a certain kind of like very serious intellectual record collector type guy, right? Who actually who is not building his taste in this kind of please senpai give me a list way.
yeah.
There are kinds of guys like that where you'll have conversations with and they'll be like, "Oh man, I was always, I liked White House and Brain Bombs, but I could never really get into metal. Like, can you tell me what to listen to?" Or, "Oh, I'm a very serious, I really like, jazz and electronic music, but like, there's something that's interesting to me about Burzum, but it never quite did." Like, you can talk with a guy like that and be like, "Okay, man, here's like 5 albums I could put you on," or like one, right? A certain kind of like, for someone who's like a big fan of just like loud guitar music and just wants to know what they sound like, you'd be like, "Yeah, just go listen to Mayhem, Demonstrus Dom Satanas," right? Everyone, that is kind of like everyone who's into loud guitars, yeah, you probably should hear that
Yeah.
once. But you don't need to go beyond. You could just hear that once and be like, "Wow, that's like weird." And that's weird and kind of cool. And then, it's just like reading a novel, right? You can just leave it there. You've read the novel. That's great.
Yeah.
You know?
And there's also an aspect to it which is like sort of like standard old guy talking point, but it's completely true, is like, when I got Gorgoroth's Pentagram, the first black metal CD I ever bought, that was the black metal CD I had. I've listened to Pentagram
Yes.
well over 100 times, probably over 200. Like, I was listening to it the other day. We spent so much more time with these albums than, like, almost any kid does with their, like, supposed favorite albums these days. Because we were restricted. We had to fucking care about it. When I got my copy of Transylvanian Hunger when I was, like, 14 or 15, that was a big fucking deal for me. Like, to have that, to be able to listen to that, and this is before YouTube, before this is, like, completely accessible to everyone, it fucking meant something. Like, I had to go
before Blogspot too.
I had to go out of my way to get this stuff. You know, I'm scouring, like, used CD stores for bands that I've vaguely heard of. There's not all this information laid out in this precise way. And if you want to know, like, I sincerely believe, if you want to know how you develop a sincere and precise and well-articulated taste, it's by doing shit like that. It's not by, like, listening to the 100 best black metal albums and picking the 20 that you want to base your personality around. Like, you just listen to shit and you carve something out.
Yes, the contingency of finding things is important. It's like your own quest. There's all sorts of things I didn't listen to when I was younger, and maybe if I could abstractly go back in time, there's occasionally a band where I was like, man, I really would have loved to be listening to this at exactly that time of my life. But for the most part, you find it when you need to.
Yes. And that's why I think it's sort of like, I think okay, these guys are coming from a good place, but, like, it's ridiculous when they're like, oh, I'm 25. Oh, like, I'm interested in, you know, some guy in Rate Your Music, I'm 25. I'm interested in getting into black metal. I'm like, you're done. Like, you're not going to. Or at least, like, even if you do, you're not going to in the manner that, like, we did. Because you didn't define your fucking existence around it like you do when you're a teenager.
I wouldn't even say, not all of these people are coming from a good place. You know, sometimes the place they're coming from is one of just, like, aimlessness.
Just aimless consumption.
You know, they're the kind of people who, like, read Wikipedia. You know what I mean?
They're
like,
the people who watch, like, they watch long video essays on YouTube where a guy is mostly just, like, repeating shit from the first page of Google results, and he doesn't know a goddamn thing that he's talking about sincerely.
Basically, it's a passive consumptive approach to things, which can be it can be with, like, music, but it can also just be like, people will be like, man, I just love learning new stuff. Man, I love information. I love just I know about a lot of things. And this is a type that is facilitated. This is a type that has always existed. The person who knows a lot but isn't very interested in understanding. Who knows but doesn't understand. And doesn't really have the wherewithal. Maybe they haven't learned it. Maybe they just don't have it in them to dig deeper and figure out what they really like and how those things work. And so you get a lot of people who think they did something intellectual. They're like, oh man, I love going down rabbit holes.
Oh God.
Right. Okay. You mean, so you like reading Wikipedia for 3 hours in, like, a dopamine spike, and then regurgitating it to people rather than, like, reading a book. And I'm not saying, look, we've all like gone down a wiki K hole or whatever. We all obsessively do stuff on the internet. But I mean, for a certain kind of person, that's the furthest it goes.
And they confuse that for, like, real knowledge. And to put a fine point on it, like, okay, this is where I'll get, like, a little gay and, like, straightforward. This is, like, with the listeners, like, you have to understand that back in, like, the mid-2000s, we weren't okay. There, like, the percentage of people who were listening to black metal back then and otherwise living normal lives was like 10%. And like 90% of us were hyper fucked up. And we still are. That's like...
Yep.
This was like fringe music for people that were like outside of society. And for people like us, like that still lives on. And I think a lot of the, I think a lot of the listeners of our show identify with that and shit. And I guess we can we can like dovetail, we can dovetail into my like ignominious fucking retreat from the Metal Archives. But like, I want to stress to everyone out there that like, this kind of relates to the character of Nocturn also. I am never going to be able to, like, live a regular life. I've, like, attempted several times over the years to, like, work a normal job and not say shit that ends up, like, upsetting people or, like, creeping them out or something. I've tried to, like, do the right thing insofar as, like, regular life shit. I can't do it, man. Like, I'm gonna be a fucked up art weirdo for the rest of my life. And I think it's only relatively recently that that's, like, really clicked in my head that there is no third act. Like, this is, this is what we're doing. And I'm okay with that. But it's very important to understand that the black metal scene, or whatever like underground counterculture thing that you're into, fundamentally is not as serious as it was X number of years ago. And
Brutal Death attracted a slightly different character group, but these were people who were the Brutal Death guys there were Brutal Death guys in the early 2000s who were fun guys, but they were like fun guys in the sense that they would go do meth and shit.
Yeah.
Right? Like, they, and they probably were a lot of fun to hang out with, but these weren't like and sure, yeah, they liked, like, playing Xbox or whatever, but they liked doing it on meth.
Yeah.
And the Brutal Death guys who weren't nice guys, were the kind of people you would expect would listen to brutal death metal, let's just say.
Yeah. No, right? there were like actual scary people. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's how it should be.
20 years ago, if you were a Brutal Death guy, that meant you were like watching gore videos on Ogrish, before Live Leak.
At the very least. Yeah. It's
so with that in mind, let me clarify the story of my downfall, because there's been 600 different versions of it, and I want to clarify. There's been this, like, insane fucking game of telephone that's occurred about, like, what I've done, and, like, some of it's true, but a bunch of the details are wrong and shit, so let me just, like, here's the story for everyone that's, like, curious. So, I got involved with a girl, like, actually, this is, like, immediately after I met you, Pavel. Like, literally the day after I get home from that fucking tour, I'm seeing this chick. I am, like, setting up to bang this girl, like, on Skype, like, on the road. Like, so...
Dude, you wanted to bang that girl.
Well, yeah, of course I did. Okay, so that was an old girlfriend of mine who I got involved with. I got involved with her, and she was, like, a massive drug user. And me, I was like, well, fuck it, why not? In for a penny, in for a pound. I pretty much overnight become, like, a massive amphetamine addict. Amphetamines are my main thing, but honestly, I'm doing, like, fucking anything I can get my hands on. Fortunately, the opiates never became a big thing for me. They just make me... That is good. Yeah, they make me throw up and then I fall asleep, so that's no fun. I'm much more of an upper dude. So that steadily gets completely out of fucking control. At one point, this girlfriend has some health problems, and because I'm like a 20-year-old retard, I don't realize you can just like not pay it, and that's universal health care. So and at this point it's like I don't give a fuck about like my big collection of music anymore or anything. It's like, so I just start selling records. I sell tons and tons of items out of my collection to various people. But here's the problem, is that I basically don't have any money. Like, all the money is leaving as soon as it comes in, and not for drugs. This is what everyone's confused by. It's like, I wasn't spending the money on drugs. I was giving the money to my girlfriend, who was probably spending the money on drugs, but that's not really my thing.
Drugs that you were doing.
Yeah, drugs I was doing, but like,
I'm just giving you shit, man. I understand.
Well, no, but it's like she had.
I'm just saying, the money that you're not spending on your girlfriend's medical expenses, the
Well,
money
no,
you save.
Well, I'm clarifying something. It's like, we were pharmaceutical addicts, so she had scripts, so like she was getting all this shit super cheap. We weren't buying anything black market. The money was going to like other shit. It was going to living expenses. I like didn't have a job at this time. Neither of us did. We're just like we're just doing straight like nasty trap house shit. So I am basically paying to ship an order with the proceeds of the next order. That's like the system. I am insanely fucked up on drugs while this is going. This is like darkest period of my life shit. A few of these packages don't arrive, or I know that one massive order got broken into and stolen. Like, a bunch of the shit was stolen out of it because it was a fucking order of like 100 CDs sent to Miami or some shit. So I am immediately in the hole because I have to start refunding people and paying them back. And I'm trying to figure out how to like get this shit done while I'm like insanely fucked up on drugs and, just sort of like mentally dissolving at this time.
As someone who interacted with them then, I can confirm.
Oh yeah, I was completely fucked. I was like melting down. It was like I was definitely like, there were periods where I was like going into amphetamine psychosis and shit. So that's like,
I think so. Yeah.
Oh no, I absolutely was. There are incidents that you don't know about. It's like I'm like digging through my house looking for microphones that are recording me and shit. It's bad. Yeah, no.
Luckily, I know where all those are in my house.
yeah. Your NSA handler is like way more chill than mine was.
I'm feeding them misinformation.
So basically, I just melt down because it's like I can't deal with like the situation that's arisen. Like, I am completely destitute. I don't have any fucking money. I'm like negative in PayPal from people like charging back, like maybe fairly, maybe not. It's like whatever. So I just flounce. I just bail out. I'm like, fuck this shit. I'm just like not gonna check my email, and just like what's done is done. That is like the story. I bounce out. I disappear. I owe a bunch of people money. A lot of those people I've paid back over the years. Shout out to Caspian, who like spotted me like $1,000 US, and I paid him back like 4 years later or something. He's cool as fuck. He's doing well. So that's what happened. So I was all fucked up on drugs, and like shortly after that, I kind of had like the realization of, oh fuck, if I keep this up, I'm like actually gonna die. Like, I remember one morning I woke up and I went to the bathroom and I was like looking at myself in the mirror, and like I could see how fucked up I was physically. Like the mental shit, whatever. But I got clean. I had like, not clean, but I had.
Well, you were mentally very troubled before you became a drug addict.
Oh yeah,
in some way, that of course that wasn't the thing that was going to wake you up.
No. Oh, so I was super crazy. I'm still like very crazy now, but obviously the massive amount of drugs like compounded a ton of issues, and it took me years to like really pull out of that. I think that most, my fucking dopamine receptors were so fucking blasted that I was just like cripplingly depressed for several years after. So I have this moment, this like epiphany of like, oh, if I keep doing this, I'm just going to die. because I like doing drugs more than anything. That's the problem with drug addiction is like doing amphetamines is literally the best feeling in the world for me. It's like falling in love continuously. And I had to say no to that. A ton of my late Metal Archives writing is drug fueled. The massive Catasexual Urge Motivation review was the product. Yeah. That is the product of like 12 hours of typing. I just did it. I just fucking like wrote. I was like, it's time to do this review, and I got fucked up on a bunch of speed, and I did it. And that's the problem, is that like I was using it to fuel a bunch of writing, which was really obviously just an avoidant process to like not deal with the fact that my life was all fucked up. But the problem is that like the writing that was coming out was really good. I would write fucked up and published sober, and it was really painful because like the shit that I wrote while fucked up on drugs was for the most part just me at my best while sober, and I had to like say no to that pretty much. So I
think that would have started probably summer 2011.
Yeah.
You kept it up. You kept it up for a long time, and then we were at this time collaborating on a blog, and we which maybe we'll get into at some point. Well, I remember there was.
Maybe that's like another live stream. I don't want to get like too crazy with this, but yeah.
Yeah. But basically there was a point at which I could see his writing, the stuff that was coming out was like detached from reality.
Yeah.
So there was a point where it was no longer helping the writing.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think the CUM comes from that period and is the best thing you did in that period.
Yeah, it is. It's
basically that was the last thing that iteration of you had in your tank. And so under extreme duress, like in, like Iggy Pop-esque sort of drugged out glory, you were produced this massive thing which you couldn't have done in that way at any other time. And then a lot of the other stuff at that point just started to become kind of obviously negatively affected by the drugs.
Yeah, it was really bad. That's like one of the things where it's like you and I were talking about like that rip of our old blog spot, and I'm like, I think that I literally don't want to see some of that later writing. Like, I think that would like
yes. It was troubling to me because I didn't know what was happening.
Yeah, I think that I think there's certain shit you do actually need to leave in the past, and I think that's like a big thing for me. So anyway, so I have this epiphany. I know that I'm gonna fucking die, and I'm like, fuck, I gotta get cleaned up. I'm from a shitty oxy town in Central Florida, so there's no opportunity there. So I decide to join the army. I just sort of commit to it. I'm just like, this is what I'm gonna fucking do, because like I need to get away from here. I need to get away from everything and everyone I know, and that's like my only shot at some kind of life. Some fucking jackass on like Rate Your Music is like, he joined the German army. No, dipshit. I was living in Germany for a couple years in the U.S. Army. Like, what the fuck are you guys imagining? Anyway, so I do that. I was in military intelligence.
Yeah. That's our time travel timeline.
Yeah. I somehow managed to. Yeah, that's where I get German citizenship and join the fucking Bundeswehr. So I do that. I do that for a few years. I'm doing military intelligence. I get out, and then it's life from there. I've got a wife and a series of white-collar jobs, and that basically brings us up to the present. 2020, COVID hits. We're like, oh, shit, we've been talking about doing this podcast for however long. It's kind of now or never. So we do it, and now we're here. And, yeah, as far as, like, the lingering shit from that, yeah, obviously the Nocturn name... The Nocturn name for me just represents, like... It represents a lot of creativity and a lot of, like, hard work on my part, but it's, like, what it's really associated with is, like, loneliness and sadness and self-destruction. Like, I'm like kind of joking around about it now, but it's like I'm not going to take that name again. That's done. That guy is like not here anymore. But I think that it's interesting to try to synthesize all this stuff into into I don't know, the closest thing I can be to like a complete person, I guess. It wasn't good. Like, when you read that stuff, you're reading like the writings of like an intensely lonely, introverted, intellectual kid who like did this because he felt a pull to it, because he was obsessed with the music and he liked writing and he wanted to like promote shit that he thought mattered as well as shit that didn't matter. I loved doing, the funny thing is people talk about the Catasexual Urge Motivation Review, this big album, that big album. I'm so much more proud of like the hundreds of CDR demo reviews that I did. Like,
yeah.
That's where
I still remember your review of Grudge.
Oh, dude.
You described their morbid, their disturbing, quote unquote, hooting vocal, and I was like, I have to hear this.
Yeah,
we did eventually play that on Terminus, but now I can say obviously that was a fucking Nocturn review.
Yeah, dude.
It's one of the most like memorable little snippets of searching through metal archives and finding something really wrong in a very compelling way.
Yeah, dude, that's such an amazing split. But yeah, I guess so. That's like the story of Nocturn. That's kind of like how we got from there to here. And it's, I guess sort of like for a closing section, I want to talk about how fucking weird it is that legacy is continued. That, I would self-indulgently Google the name like once a year, and it always shocked me that people were still talking about that stuff, because it's like, I think a lot of the writing is good, not really like exceptionally better than plenty of other guys that were doing shit, and in a lot of cases worse than shit that was happening at the same time. And watching the legend of this character grow is like, I mean, on one hand, it's kind of cool in like a self-indulgent way. On the other hand,
of course it's cool.
Man, it's like, it is cool, but honest, I am being dead serious when I say it's like so wrapped up in so many like really bad memories.
No, I totally get that part of it is there too. That part, absolutely. Like it's not always a pleasant thing, but in some ways you sacrificed some of yourself and your sanity, and you left a legacy, and the legacy is, I mean, you were really putting it all out there and kind of exposing yourself in ways that are not easy in retrospect. But like, achieve something, and I think that's super cool, man. I say that as your friend.
No, I appreciate that, man, and I'm glad that people have like apparently gotten meaningful stuff out of it. That, I think that's like one of the weirdest things is I've had people who have like figured it out, or I've like revealed it to, approach me over the years and be like, oh man, this was like, I mean, a couple of the guys in the chat were like, hey, you really had like a big impact on my music taste, and that's really cool, and I'm glad that it was positive. It's also the weirdest fucking thing in the world to imagine, because like this stuff that I do, that we do, is, there's an audience for it who are observing it or consuming it in some way, but it really is like an internal thing. Like, I didn't feel like I had finished an album until I wrote about it, Like, writing about music was part of the experience of listening to it.
That's an interesting way of putting it. You've told me that before, but that is a very good way of thinking about it. It's, it's also, for me too, we've talked about this, it's also kind of an obsessive, it's like a tick that you can't help.
Oh yeah, I mean, this is all the product of obsession. I have these sort of like intense compulsions for various things. Some of them are positive and some are negative, but one of them is definitely this idea of like, to complete a work of art, I have to write about it. I have to try to... It's like, I've gotten something from this, now I need to give something back. And that's silly. Obviously, like, a review of a record is always inferior to the experience of listening to the record. But to me, it felt like I was contributing to this greater corpus of knowledge. And that's always been kind of the main thing that motivates me. It's not about, like, me exactly. It's about adding my voice to this chorus of people talking about these things and trying to promote things that are good and to express how I feel about them. And yeah, I mean, it's very personal. Like, the work that I've done, be it writing about music or doing the podcast or doing my own writing now, these are all intensely personal things to me that I have a deep, deep emotional relationship with. And it's like, it's honestly some of the most important stuff I've ever done in my life. As far as like what defines me, it's like churning out this work, you know? So I guess from that perspective, it's cool that people see as significant something that I see as so significant to myself, but in a way that can be useful to others. And I think that's cool.
Yeah, I do think also, there is a way, I like what you were saying about, adding something. I think there's a way that maybe not every review, but a good review, possibly even a negative review that's well written, can extend, adds to the legacy of the work, right? The work echoes through all of its subsequent iterations and kind of, when it has depths, it maybe has things implicit in it that never become explicit until somebody says something, until somebody reviews it, right? That power all does exist in the music and people feel it, but there's eventually a time when someone articulates it, and then when that person puts a name on the feeling and thinks it through, then suddenly other people are able to feel it too, or more clearly see that feel, understand how that feeling connects to the other ways they feel in the music. And so there's kind of the work unfolds or expands through that series of critical interpretations. It sort of gradually reveals itself. So I really do think you are not just adding something to the scene, but adding something to the art when you do that, even though, of course, it's completely dependent on the work itself, right? It's never, the criticism is never in any way supplanting the thing, but it's part of its legacy, just as, and, there are really great records out there that, exist in the eyes of the gods, but that nobody is listening to, and that will take on a greater and more potent life when people do start talking about them.
Yeah, I think that like the most significant, like for instance, in making music myself, I've always thought of the artistic process as like a sort of like chain of memory or like a chain of human connection. And my dream in making music was never to like get big or to get popular or anything. If those things happen, that would be cool, but that's like not going to happen. My dream was that I could put something out that some 14-year-old kid in the future would find, and it would be like the experience of me hearing Mortician when I was 14. Like one kid. I really don't give a fuck. Like, but the idea of that chain continuing, of like human communication throughout the generations through these things that we make. Like that was always really significant to me. And writing is part of that. You know, I mean, I've now gotten to see that there's these guys who got into metal who, like, after I had, like, bailed out of Metal Archives and my writing career, giant fucking quotes around that, who, like, I was, like, an early writer that they read, and they got stuff from it. So that's in a very small way, but that chain of human connection and communication continues through that. So it is very nice. Everyone's been insanely cool in the chat, and I want to say broadly, you know, thank you all for the very kind words that you've had about my writing in the past, and I'm glad that I was able to give something back to people. You know, it's sometimes when you look at like the sum total of your life, you feel like you've really just like taken a lot. So it's nice to see. Mm-hmm. It's nice to see like evidence of people outside of your immediate circle like giving a shit.
Yeah. So that's obviously these are pretty conclusive remarks. We could get into questions. There's one more thing I did want to discuss that we were talking about on the phone the other day. Would you be cool with that?
Oh yeah, no, go ahead. I'm just sort of
yeah.
I'm like I'm having feelings. So you're good.
No, I think that is wonderful, man. I think yeah. Oh, 4321 Ironman. Oh yeah, I figured I had a feeling you were Street Shark somehow. Yeah. But thanks, man. Um anyway, before we get to more chat stuff, we wanted to talk a little bit about Nocturn the character.
God.
Like
Yeah.
basically like and that there's a thing we've gotten towards this a few times over the course of the conversation, but there's a thing that's changed on the internet. Back in the day, these days, basically, in an age of literal and dispersed social surveillance, mutual surveillance, as well as literal surveillance and censorship, everyone understands that the internet lives forever. Everyone has learned this hard lesson themselves or seen it happen to other people. And so people both have some people have a very sort of immediate subjective persona on the internet, a personal, you know, they are themselves on the internet. And that, ironically, that self has to be carefully curated. Right? You can't be yourself too much on the internet, but it is authentically you. So you have your Instagram page where you talk with your friends, and that's like, it's got pictures of your dog and your girlfriend and the show you went to and the craft beers you got, right? That's your personal individual Instagram page. And then you also have a burner, right? Mm-hmm. And the burner, you know, is eventually going to get banned, and it's completely arbitrary. So you put in, your profile picture is an anime girl in an SS hat, and you use that to spam, absolutely. Use that to sometimes say things that you really think that you couldn't say on your personal Instagram page, and sometimes to troll and just say crazy shit, mm-hmm. right? And you know the PFP, you know they're going to get your alt. They're coming for your alt eventually. And so it's this sort of arbitrary thing, and basically creating it is a joke. Nobody has like a serious shit posting account. Mm-hmm. It's on the other hand, so that's the current thing, is that there are people who are themselves on the internet, which is, at least in our sort of circles, is becoming rarer and rarer. A lot of us just opt out entirely. And there's sort of a non-burner culture. Back in the day, before the Eye of Sauron was so omnipresent, there was a very different kind of thing, which was the internet character, uh, the internet persona. And so you would have a handle, and the handle would be very consistent. And you would give it a name that you genuinely thought was cool, but wasn't you. Something like Noctorn.
Yeah.
Or a lot of the old MA names are like this, right? Hellblazer. What else? You would what are a few other good old MA names that are kind of heroic?
Gutter Scream is outstanding.
Gutter Scream. That's a great
And it's
fucking name.
and it's
Man.
also
Yeah.
because
Oh, Night Gaunt. Night Gaunt is a sick name.
Night Gaunt's great.
Right?
So and Gutter Scream is even cooler because he had a zine in the early 90s called Screams from the Gutter.
Right.
That's so fucking
awesome.
sick. That guy fucking rules. Him, Ultra Boris, fucking, yeah. I mean, well, War Crimer. You know, like,
Yeah, I'm not sure he wrote that probably was his handle. Yes, that's true. That's a great. Yes, basically like your writing persona, your online persona, and we're not just talking about MA here, but MA is a good example. Your online persona was something like a nom de guerre, like a black metal pseudonym, and it was like a character that deeply expressed a you that it was a selective presentation of yourself, maybe things about yourself you couldn't share in everyday life, or things that you aspire, your aspirational self, or kind of a self you were experimenting with. You're like feeling out different ways of being on the internet, and kind of posturing theatrically in a way, right? You're trying out a way of being, in this experimental way that people kind of should in their late teens or whatever. And these were something like, these were like World of Warcraft characters.
yeah.
Basically, like, these sorts of internet personas were far more like a character in an RPG than a modern PFP, than a modern burner account or a modern Anon thing or whatever. They were very separate from your everyday identity, which allowed you to be outrageous and weird, but also deeply personal in the way that you don't take it personally when your Anon gets banned. Right.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, I think that the internet pre-smartphone I think of as a kind of like, I mean, this is kind of the art fag in me speaking. I think of it as kind of a collaborative art project. Like,
that makes sense. Yep.
people are interacting with each other under this strange sort of like shadow of themselves. I'm sure that like the young guys in the chat would be into it. It's like some of your best traits and some of your worst traits hyperbolized and just sort of shot into this like empty digital space where it collides with other personalities. Which is why I always thought, like, I think that's why I found trolling so interesting, because like trolling to me represented like a mismatched two incongruous sets of understanding of a certain interaction.
Yes.
Because it's like, for me, did I live on the internet? Yeah, I absolutely did. I've lived most of my life on the internet. It's like the internet's where my home is. But I also sort of like never took it all that seriously. There's like parts of it that I took very seriously, but a lot that I didn't. A lot of things that I said in reviews back then are like earnestly held opinions, but phrased in the most provocative manner possible, and I think that like we had a better sense of that back then. The idea that, well, it was a different time. the internet wasn't real back then. Now the internet is this geometric overlay over real life. And ironically, that means that we all have less freedom now. Because we are sort of by default locked into real identities to interact with the internet in a large part, like, we can't be creative. We can't fucking have fun anymore. You know?
Yeah. It's, I guess what it is like we've had to become like there was a fuzzy boundary between like when you were the Nocturn character meant that there was a fuzzy boundary between when you were being sincere and when you were trolling.
Yeah.
Whereas now you just create an account to troll. And trolling in the strict sense involves a deliberate insincerity.
Yeah.
Which isn't what was going on
Yeah.
with you. But you were, and we all were. I mean, we all were absolutely trying to get a rise out of people.
Oh yeah, I still am.
Right?
Dude.
You want to be as yeah, you want to be as provocative as possible in a way that will piss off the people you hate, and also impress the people that you want to be like, or show everyone, there's something egoistic about the early internet.
Oh yeah.
I think, even though like you want to show everyone the kind of cool guy you are. And that can of course be cringe. In retrospect, a lot of the stuff we wrote in that time is to some degree cringe.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that it could be cringe in the context of a very good review. But like there was this kind of posturing or, sort of aesthetic and ideological peacocking all of us did back then.
Well,
and
but I would argue that we still fucking do it now. We just couch it in a bunch of like, oh, I'm not really that invested in this bullshit. Like.
Oh, well, I don't think so. It's not the disinvesting is I think, at least for me, a number of things have happened in my life that have forced me to think carefully about because the internet is all real now. I have to say only what I actually think and not all of it. Right? It's,
yeah, like,
I'm very careful about what I say. And you didn't used to have to worry about that. And although there can be something cringe about the lack of intellectual discipline in the old internet, where you're just kind of saying stuff that feels cool. There was something experimental about that was invigorating and fun.
Yeah,
right?
You're like, remember that, like, most of these people that we're talking about, like, on Metal Archives around my era are, like, fucking teenagers in early 20s. We're trying shit out. Like you said on the phone the other day, it's like as a kid, as a teenager, you are supposed to try on identities to find the one that works best for you. I think that I think that there is a very perverse concept of authenticity these days, which is just based around like never saying anything contradictory ever, unless someone like drags,
yes,
or someone will drag you on Twitter for it. Like, you don't get to like experiment, you don't get to change positions on things. You're just like locked in because there's just this infinite array of people who are like desperately trying to find some indication of hypocrisy on your part, and like
that is true.
That's all
true.
it is,
And yeah, trying to set up and own, right? Yeah, it's you have to always think about it's like, well, you do jujitsu or whatever. You have to think about like jujitsu or judo. It's like, how can I say this? Would this leave me vulnerable to getting owned?
Oh yeah, and that sucks, dude.
Yeah, and of course these owns are always almost the definition of an own is that it is facile and often is responding to a misconstrual of what someone said that you could clean up in 5 seconds. You could be like, oh, well, of course I didn't mean that. I meant this. Or, yeah, I meant that, but like in this or other sense. It could all be cleared up in 5 seconds, but all that matters is that the person got the shot in on you, and, nobody ever sees the correction, right?
Oh yeah,
It's,
and
so,
I really want to stress to people that it's like as fun as it might feel, participating in owning culture, like just obliterates your soul. Like, don't fucking do
yeah, I
that.
agree about that.
Like,
I agree about that.
don't participate in that. Don't engage with like rage bait shit. Shit that's not like fucking having fun on the internet. Shit that's like actually designed to upset you spiritually. Like, don't do that. Like, don't spend your time fucking making yourself miserable. I did that for a lot of years. I fucking promise all you Zoomers, you will not you will not come out with something great on the other side of it. Like,
Well, a thing we could revisit relative to this, I mean, that's actually Sam Hyde has some great stuff on this. He really understands that, and the Sam Hyde, the stuff he was putting out in like late 2020, early 2021, really articulated that very well.
yeah.
There's a certain sort of you have to be like water and go around the obstacle. And we could maybe talk about this more whenever, if and whenever we talk about our collaborative work in the past or whatever. But like, I think a lesson that Noah and I both had to learn. I mean, I think we haven't stressed this enough. I guess, well, a lot of people have already read your writing, but like, Nocturn was extremely negative, right? And abrasive. And in fact, one reason shit went south with Metal Archives, like, you know, uh, Nocturn's bad behavior, which was real, but
Yeah.
understandable under the circumstances, um, created an opportunity for a lot of people who already had it out for him to sort of finish the job. And this is in part because Nocturne was a very abrasive character. And my own writing from that time was pretty abrasive too. We were both very negative, and we thought that we could help the scene by verbally destroying shit that was gay.
Yeah. And it turns out
And
that doesn't work
that
at all.
doesn't work at all. In a very rare case, there might be a need for. I think both of us sincerely believe there is a place for the negative review, and that should be more common than it is. But in the current cultural ecosystem and on the internet in particular, it simply doesn't work for the most part, and certainly uh, in part because the people who really like the shit that is gay aren't going to care about your opinion anyway. So it's and and you do also back yourself into certain corners by only defining yourself against certain things. You are taking a shortcut because you should be doing the hard work of saying, what do I actually think is good and cool and strong in music? What is beautiful and why? And we both attempted that in our writing at the time, but the negative polemical angle takes you away from that. And I think the thing we've learned is that culture is an attractive force.
Yeah.
You really want to be you want to be putting forth what your ideal is, and hopefully that will draw people to it and generate interest. And there are things that are put out there almost to piss you off, whether it's a post or an entire band or a record label. And the more negative energy you give them, all they're doing is making your day worse. And all you're doing is giving them a reaction. You don't dignify, and all you're doing is taking it seriously. The key stuff, one of the key mentalities that changes that we had, I think, was like, you can't save you can't save the scene from liturgy because liturgy isn't the scene.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? You can't save the scene from panopticon because panopticon isn't the scene. I should say these days seems like that guy is kind of chiller than he used to be, but you know what I mean. And the music has always been terrible as far as I know, it's probably still terrible. But like, yeah, you can't save the scene. You see something that's false, and your immediate impulse as a sort of, I think it's fair to say we were both pretty bloody-minded kids.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I guess, I mean, I guess we still are, but you know, it. But we were both, I think, very aggressive in the way we thought about the world in ways that we've both had to sort of mature from and realize there's some other aspects to life. But we would see the thing that was false and want to save the scene by destroying it. And you cannot destroy a thing with words, and you have to go around it and build something else and refuse to recognize it as legitimate. You know, it's just, this stuff simply doesn't matter. What you can do with criticism is try to determine what matters and what doesn't. You know, when we do a negative review of something, it's always something that is in some way something we actually take seriously and that is appealing to people who we take seriously and who are serious about the music. And we're trying to convince you, maybe this thing, on terms we all kind of agree, isn't what it's cracked up to be, right? You know, people all the time call it rage bait and still engage with it. Yes. I mean, also, there's a whole form of cope that's become common now, which is calling something you disagree with rage bait. I mean, that's a whole other,
like, do not fucking slip into this sort of like completely brain poisoned internet discourse. Like, if an idea sounds like completely retarded and irrational, it probably is. Like, and like, you don't deal, what do you do with like insane screaming homeless people on the street? You like walk past, you don't fucking engage with it, you don't try to like dissect what the schizophrenic's word salad means, you fucking move on with your day, dude.
Yeah, you will, even if there are maybe very rare cases where a well-considered objection to someone else's comment on, say, like a comments thread, you know, if somebody says some dumb shit and you reply with something that isn't an own, but is pithy and quick, you could really contribute to a cultural conversation that way. But moments like that are fewer and far between, and only speak to a tiny number of people, you know, the sort of fuckheads like us who don't even look at the video. We immediately read the comments. And you know, yeah, if you have 5 minutes and it's not going to give you a headache, do it. But I do that shit a lot less these days because it costs me half an hour and it gives me a headache.
Yeah.
And for the most part, yeah, you can't destroy someone on the internet by owning him. If you really need to be mean on the internet, just call them names. Just be rude.
A tried and true historical tactic. So.
Yeah. Which will, and these days it will hurt people far more than it would have back in the day. So it's a win-win.
Yeah. I think this is a good spot to kind of wrap things up.
Okay. All right, let's take some questions then, because we've got a few good ones.
Yeah, let's see.
I know. Let's see.
Lots of.
Well, I've seen some that I want to get to, but I just talked a lot, so I'll let you get a couple.
Oh, that's fine. Well, thanks to everyone.
Well, clean up the Nocturn questions first, maybe.
Let's see. Oh, Disgorging Consciousness was asking regarding Winter Solace, what was the Nazi video game music, racist doom MIDI music? Kind of, yeah. It was a lot of like 8-bit shit with like NS themes. It like literally none of it's good. I think somebody else asked, like, oh yeah, Street Shark was asking, is there any of the weird Nazi video game music on CDR you'd recommend? None of it. It's all bad. Like it's all fucking shitty joke music. None of it's good. Lots of people were extremely nice about what I was saying regarding, the sort of emotional connection to the process. Thank you all for listening and for reading my stuff. You're all very kind. Let's see. Is there any other stuff about me? I don't really think so. I think it's. I think that most of those questions have been answered.
Let's see. Okay, where did we get? Let's see. Oh, before we get too far in, I could have done this earlier, but I don't know if he's hanging out anymore, but I did want to say shout out to Based Hooligan and congratulations on their new podcast, which has really taken off.
Yeah, and it's good stuff. Like, I'm sure everyone here has heard it already, but if by some chance you haven't, you should check it out. Like, they're definitely part of the co-prosperity sphere of actual good metal podcasts, along with like Hessian Scrum and Bunsen Burner, that kind of shit.
And of course, Radio Free Innsmouth.
Although and RFI.
Technically, RFI isn't a podcast, but we obviously have to count him because he's actually been in the game as far as putting, he's been in the game a lot longer than any of us as far as doing the sort of spoken, doing like audio metal, serious audio metal journalism about like the real shit. He's been doing it for the longest.
Bestial Conclave asked top 10 funny spurgouts from the early NA forums. Like half of them. Half of them are probably mine, but I'm just gonna like rattle some shit off real quick, and like I'm like not even gonna provide context. I just want to like point out what this shit was. Devachka Nikki, who was this teenage girl who was like a heroin addict who was fucking some like 40-year-old guy. Not sure if any of it was true, but it was like taken to be true on there. Drone Riot, the various insane shit that he got up to over the years, crazy like on-forum suicide attempt, and just being sort of like a maniac German hikikomori. One of my favorite stories.
Oh, Drone Riot was cool.
Drone Riot was a cool guy. I used to talk to him a lot back in the day.
Yeah. He has like an entire meme. That's the guy, right? Who has sort of an entire meme black metal label. Was doing that long before it was cool.
Yeah. And like, I mean, he had kind of a meme band with Fuck Zaster. Let's see. One of my favorite stories that nobody knows about because nobody knows who these people are anymore. Einvok, a dedicated white nationalist, and Rick James, the only black guy on the forum, meeting IRL to hang out and smoke weed and talk about like race and metal. It was it was a fascinating moment of like two guys from like radically different ends of the political spectrum who just ended up really personally liking each other, and there seemed to be like a truly deep affection between the two of them. It seemed really cool.
I feel like that's like prescient for the nowadays scene.
Yeah, those guys are in like a Filipino groiper black metal band now. Yeah.
They're hugging it out. They're broing out in the metal threat pit.
The only thing they fear, Those are some, as far as like full-fledged spurgouts, like, let's see, there was Alexander the Great, who is a very funny guy. He was I believe a big fat British dude who loved power metal and huge tits. And he had autism, obviously. He was very cool. As far as like distinct spurgouts or moments, like there wasn't actually a ton of that because like we were all just talking to each other constantly. I mean, there's shit that sucked. There were like several people who committed suicide. Like that's how the metal scene was back then. Like that shit happened with like some regularity. It was bad. Like I lost a couple of friends back in the day, people who I posted with and shit. But as far as like entertaining spurgouts, like it's more oriented around characters.
I would say a lot of the mod activity is, at least may have been very annoying at the time, but is in retrospect an entertaining spurgout. I mean, there was a lot of like the Morrigan mod crew were saying a bunch of very funny things. Right.
Yeah, they were just saying like sort of
the attempts to the repeated attempts to keep a lid on the MA community were extremely funny and had a bit of an Elmer Fudd or Keystone Cops kind of vibe, even though they were ultimately successful.
Yeah, it was very fucking stupid. Like I'm not gonna like sit here and bitch about people from back then, but it's like most of the people I disliked back then that I was known to dislike, I still dislike, and we'll basically leave it at that. Suga was asking, do I think the golden days of the Metal Archives will ever come back, or is the site doomed? The golden days will never come back because the internet of 2005 is never coming back. It's not fucking coming back. The closest to that environment you will get are like private forums. I'm on a few of those that will have like cool music or art discussion, or like private Discord servers, and that's it. You're not going to have like a sincere quality discussion on fucking Reddit or Instagram or anything like that. You have to go to these walled gardens where people of similar mindsets about art can talk to each other. Metal Archives is completely fucking doomed. The database is like not nearly as good as it used to be because they fucking banned all the like sociopaths who were really responsible for handling the back end shit.
Yeah, as you said, it was the NS guys doing the actual nuts and bolts of running the site.
Dude, one of the biggest guys for as far as like submitting bands and like making edits and shit was like an insane like 40-something NS dude from Belgium. Like, that's just...
Oh, yeah.
A lot of those guys were just the backbone of shit. And also, like... I mean, you say, is the site doomed? I mean, it's already doomed. Like, the forum doesn't get...
It's been done for 10 years, at least. More.
Yeah, like, the forum really doesn't get nearly the traction that it used to. I can recognize maybe 2 names if I go through a bunch of threads. Like, none of the old guard are there who are serious about it. Now it's just a fucking place to talk about Amon Amarth. It's like, whatever.
I will say I have seen a new crop. I have actually seen a new crop of younger writers who seem obviously influenced by your style. And that's been refreshing to read, but I don't think they're going to find... There might lead to an uptick in average review quality, but they're not really going to find a home there, and they won't be able to change the culture. Shelley is still posting there, and as much as we, disagree with his worldview, he's... he often has insightful things to say about metal that he cross-posts from his blog, but that's different from, that's just different from what the core of the site was back in the day.
Yeah, and it's also, like, important to note that it's, like, most of the talented guys on Metal Archives these days are cross-posting from elsewhere. These are guys with, like, their own websites or, some sort of serious presence elsewhere that are mirroring their shit onto MA. It used to be MA was your home and you would mirror elsewhere, like I did with RYM, but now that's changed. Like, it's not nearly the institution that it used to be. It used to be, for several years, the center of the internet metal scene. Like, straight up. I mean, there were places where you could get more in-depth, specific conversation about certain subgenres or something, but in aggregate, the Metal Archives was the place to be. And that's never going to happen again.
Yeah. All right, so some other stuff we've got in the comments. I loved this random question from Kanatiko, who asked what we thought of German Romanticism.
I don't know enough about it to comment, so Pavel, I think that'd be your thing.
I think he said, what was the original question? It was something like, I want to see. thoughts on early German Romanticism. Yeah, I see. So, I mean, there is stuff from that time. I like it. Let's see. When was Holderlin alive? Yeah. So there is. I've never had a real reading knowledge of German. And there's all sorts of translated translations I haven't read. Um, there's like key. I haven't read Novalis, who you were referencing, or Holderlin. Some of the people we would see as like the artistic early German romantics. I'm a massive fan of Goethe. I think Goethe, in some ways, is he anticipates romanticism, but is already critiquing it and even parodying it. He sees it as a nascent tendency in the late 18th century, and he's in some ways, Werther is kind of. I mean, I haven't read Werther. I've spent a lot of time with Faust. Faust is in many ways a very romantic text, but it's also about the sort of the limits of romanticism and the boundaries. Um, Goethe is one of those geniuses who's out ahead of everyone who follows him, right? You can read Faust and you can find Hegel in it. You can read Faust and you can also find Nietzsche in it, especially. And technically, it's less like what we would think of as typical romanticism, at least from the English romantics, who I know better, and more like a modernist poem or, play or novel. A lot of the techniques you find in The Wasteland or James Joyce or cantos are already in Faust, which is nuts. So I do really like Faust. I know the period better philosophically. Obviously, I have great admiration for the sort of like the philosophers who influenced romanticism, like Kant, right, or who sort of formalized it philosophically, like Hegel. I That's not really where my heart is philosoph. I tend to disagree with those guys on a lot. You might have even heard me complaining about it on the show at some point. But I really like Schiller, who is of that school and very much a romantic. But he is one of the best. I think he's underrated as a philosopher. Um, I think Letters on the Aesthetic Education of Man is a fantastic distillation of the implications of Kant's philosophy, which Kant himself, I mean, I think Kant would have just agreed with it in a lot of ways, but Kant himself didn't formally draw out. And and it's certainly a major move towards like a more absolute idealism. But there's also things about Schiller, particularly the fact that he's really Schiller isn't just a philosopher; he's an artist and a man of the world. You get the sense that like this guy enjoys music and probably drinking and the company of beautiful women, and this leads him to kind of like certain insights about the role of passion, or what he would call, the sort of the sensuous, the sense impulse in art, that I think are put him kind of, in some ways, he's a little at odds with your Kant or your Hegel or your more down the line German idealist type thinkers, and leads to stuff that I really like relates to the most sort of passionate and abandoned aspects of something like Faust, and also to also to Nietzsche's conceptions of will and heroic fatalism. So I definitely like Schiller a lot. I would say philosophically, I am not per se a romantic. I'm quite critical of the idea that, you know, I'm quite critical of dialectics as a way of thinking, and the idea that the chief moral and metaphysical drama of history is our sort of spiritualization, i.e., uh, um, intellectualization of nature. I tend to put nature first, and see reason as important but secondary. Uh, And, I know that technically, if you go into the logic or the phenomenology, spirit doesn't mean exactly the same thing as reason, and it's a process of mediation between, reason and, between sort of, consciousness and substance or whatever. But it's yeah, I think it's those are very powerful and compelling philosophers, but I disagree with them about certain things. I would say dispositionally I'm more related to the late romantics who like Nietzsche and to the modernists, like a lot of the people I already mentioned. For a modernist philosopher, somebody like Heidegger or Spengler or Junger, I'm much closer to in terms of philosophy. And, and I also like, yeah, I don't know. That's my German romanticism answer. But you asked a serious question. I gave you a serious answer. We can talk more about it later. You can fucking email Terminus.
All right. We can conclude with a classic Pavel Spurgout.
I got my moment in the sun too.
Hey, you're good, man. So yeah, I'm gonna call it there. I've got work in the morning and I want to hang out with my girlfriend and shit. So
I need to go play Halo.
Yeah, there you need to play Halo. I'm getting ready for a Soul Calibur tournament this weekend, so that's what I'm doing. Yeah, sick. I'm grinding fucking Soul Calibur again. Yeah. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for all your questions, for listening as I regale you with the tale of the most embarrassingly small, like, niche internet micro-celebrity bullshit possible. And you're all very kind. And to anyone who has appreciated my writing or has taken something positive from it, thank you so much, and it means a tremendous amount to me that my work was so significant to you. And thank you guys very much. And we will be back probably next week with a 2025 in review episode, and fucking bunch more to come after that, guys. This is not some closing of a chapter for Terminus. I plan to continue just the way we've been doing it.
It's a crescendo.
yeah, it is. I like that. We're not fading out. This is a crescendo. Our true work has yet to begin. So, thank you all so much for listening. Once again.